From a buyer's perspective, one of the fundamental strategies for having a successful M&A transaction is to ensure that there's a thorough due diligence process. It ensures that what you're getting in return for the purchase price that you're paying and gives you a chance to look under the hood, so to speak, to see if the company's actually as advertised. A robust due diligence process looks at many topics affecting all aspects of a company's business and operations. It can include things like the company's financials, their operations, their sourcing strategies, corporate and organizational matters, intellectual property, tax, HR, and benefits. But our role is a little bit different. We're looking at contractual obligations, potential breaches, legal compliance issues, corporate organizational matters, ownership issues, ownership of intellectual property, whether or not there's any pending litigation, and anything else that is particular to the target that is being looked at. For instance, a fundamental matter in legal due diligence is who owns the company and what approvals are necessary for the transaction. So we'd want to know that early on to ensure that the transaction is structured properly and that there's not going to be any issues in obtaining any required approvals. Similarly, we might look at whether or not the company actually owns the intellectual property that is being used in the business, whether or not there's any, major potential or actual litigation that the company is involved in. And all of this information allows the decision makers at the buyer to make informed decisions with respect to whether or not to move forward with the transaction altogether or whether or not it's going to affect the valuation of the company. Ideally, legal counsel is brought in pretty early in the transaction, at least to do some high-level diligence on fundamental issues. If risks are identified in due diligence, the first step is to pause and evaluate the risk or potential problem. For instance, consider things like, can the risk be quantified in terms of the amount of dollar exposure? How likely is the risk to become an actual liability to the buyer? How long will the risk be present for? And so once you've answered those questions, now it's time to think about what risk mitigation strategies can be employed.